Thanks for joining us. I'm David, Obi Fried online. You know me from Real Husbands of Loudoun County. We came out to do today's workshop at Undisputed Auto Care. Justin Morrow was good enough to let us use his shop for today. So let us know what you think and what you want to learn. Welcome to the first episode of the Real Husbands of Loudoun County workshops. This is going to be a do-it-yourself front brake job. It's pads and rotors. It should be fairly simple and easy to learn. By learning some of these individual skills, you'll be able to easily change your front brakes. We started this to try to help anybody that wants to learn basic life skills to help improve not only your livelihood, your education on how to do simple tasks, and how to save some money in the meantime, because it costs a fortune to get it done at a shop. We're gonna break it up into steps so that we can show you not only how to remove a tire as if you were on the side of the road, if you needed a flat repair or something like that, but also get a little bit more involved in showing you how to take apart brakes, how the components actually work and why they do what they do, so you can have a basic understanding of a front hydraulic brake system. All right, so on this particular vehicle, we don't have regular alloy wheels. This is a hubcap on a steel wheel. So the first thing you're gonna have to do is remove the hubcap, which is easily pulled off. You can usually do it with your hand, but with any kind of pry bar or screwdriver, it easily pops off. When we get down to the wheel, there's usually a couple different combinations. You have 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 lug nuts. On this one, we have 5. Most passenger vehicles take a 19 millimeter or a 3/4 inch socket. The first step, especially if you're stuck on the side of the road, the first mistake most people make is lifting the vehicle with the jack before they loosen the lug nuts. If you do that, once the vehicle's lifted and you try to turn this, the wheel will turn. So you want to leave it on the ground to loosen the lug nuts first. And with usually little force, you can loosen the lug nut. As soon as it becomes loose, you turn to the next one. You don't want to take them all the way off, you just want to get them loose. There. Now that all 5 are loose, it still holds the tire on so that you have no problem with the vehicle falling or anything. Now we're going to lift it. Now it's easy enough to do a brake job in your driveway just on regular jacks. In this episode, we're going to do it up top because we have the advantage of using a lift. So for the rest of it, since I've loosened the lug nuts, I should be able to remove them by hand. Now, if you're on the side of the road, the best thing to do with this, especially when you have a hubcap, is when you lay the hubcap on the ground, put your lug nuts in the hubcap. These are important. You do not want to lose these. And set it aside somewhere where you're not going to step on it. With the lug nuts removed, the tire usually comes off. The rim usually comes off pretty easily. Sometimes it's a little stuck on there. That's just called being seized. It's from dirt, debris, rust. If you get a simple tap or a kick, it usually comes right off. Once the wheel is removed, you can see the entire rotor assembly. This is your brakes. The caliper is a hydraulic system to where when you apply pressure to the brake pedal, fluid is pushed down into the line, into the caliper, and it basically squeezes the pads onto the rotor. When I remove it, you'll be able to see it more clearly. I'm going to loosen these just a hair. And then I'm going to use a screwdriver. Instead of compressing the caliper after I remove it, there's a simple trick to where if you can get inside, and there's usually a little hole in here, there's an access port right here. You can see where my finger's going in, to where I can actually touch the rotor in between the 2 pads. You have a pad on this side that clinches together once the brake pedal's compressed. Usually you can get in here with a screwdriver and I can compress the caliper while it's still on the vehicle, which saves time later. You can see the caliper moving. And basically what I'm doing by compressing the piston that's in there is it's pushing the fluid back up into the master cylinder. And this just saves time. If you're saving the rotor, sometimes you don't want to do this because you don't want to scratch it, but we're replacing everything, the whole system, the pads and rotors, so it's not going to bother me if I scratch the rotor at the moment. Right now I'm removing the slide pins that hold the caliper to the caliper bracket. Once these two screws or bolts are removed, the caliper is now free from the caliper bracket, and I can simply remove it and set it aside. You do not want to bend or crinkle this line because you can crack it, so you try to make it as simple as possible. Usually you can use some sort of coat hanger or zip tie and tie it to the spring here to get it out of the way. But this looks like it's going to sit there just fine. I'm going to remove the pads. You can see in here how the pads line up and press onto the rotor just like my hand is. When you apply the brakes, you squeeze this together and the car stops. The state inspector said that I needed pads. To pass state inspection, you need to have at least 2 30-seconds of an inch of pad life, but there's your pads. You can see where the piston pushes on the back pad and the caliper holds it like a fork on the front pad, squeezing the two together. Usually on the pads you have these little springs. These are called wear indicators. When it gets too low, they hit the rotor and make the squealing sound that you get when you need to do brakes. To remove the rotor, I have to remove the caliper bracket, which holds the caliper to the spindle. This is usually a larger socket. The caliper bracket bolts are usually quite a bit tighter. It takes a little bit more force, especially when you're using hand tools. But you can see that even with a small ratchet, I'm able to remove them. And the caliper bracket is removed. Just like the wheel, the rotor is usually seized on there a bit, and it's just from normal wear and tear, and it rusts in there a little bit. You got a BFH. With a little force with a hammer, we call them the BFH. Avoiding hitting your studs here, because if you mess up the threads on them, it makes it extremely difficult to get the lug nuts back on. But hitting with a little pressure, maybe a lot of pressure, there you go. It breaks the rust free and the rotor's removed. And you have your spindle, knuckle, ball bearings in there, your hub bearings at least. And you can see the bracket where the caliper bracket attaches to the spindle. The bolts I removed to remove the bracket. We're going to take our new rotor, make sure it's clean, and install it right where we took off the original one. Now I'm going to hand tighten the caliper bracket in place. And these are a very structural part of the assembly, so you got to make sure that this is super tight. With the bracket in place, I can install the new pads. I'm going to clean off where the pads were before to get some of the brake dust out of the way. You can see some of the debris coming off. To get a clean surface really helps with noise later. Sometimes you can even get squeaks with brand new pads and new brake surface resurfacing or rotors. Usually in the pad box, it comes with new hardware. That's to replace all this stuff. Unless it's rusted or broken, I usually don't replace it. Anti-seize is basically a high temperature grease, basically. By adding a little bit to the tabs of the brake pads, it helps them move smoothly. And in turn, keeps noise down. There we go. There's one, and then the rear. There, that one went right in. All right, with the pads installed, sometimes you want to put a little bit of anti-seize on the back where the circle of the piston hits, and a little bit on the front. And when you're installing the caliper back in place, you want to make sure you don't twist your brake line, and it should slide right in there because I already compressed it with the screwdriver in the beginning. See how easy that was when you do that? Now the slide pins sometimes are made of brass and other materials that aren't quite as sturdy as the spindle. You want these to be very firm, but you don't want to over tighten them to where you either break or strip it out. Now with everything assembled, always give it a good once over. Make sure everything's where it's supposed to be and you didn't tangle either your brake lines, your ABS lines, or anything else. This looks good to me. I'm gonna reinstall the tire. As long as you didn't kick the hubcap, your lug nuts should be sitting right where they're supposed to be. You can hand tighten these. And then you'll lower the vehicle back down. You want to do it in a star pattern. Once you get it snug, you do this in a star pattern so that you don't warp the rotor or bend the rim. If you were to do them just one at a time in a circle, it tightens one side almost like a rolling pin would, and it causes the rim and the rotor to become no longer true, no longer straight. And it can cause vibrations, noise, wobbles, just basically ruin a brand new thing you just installed. And with this vehicle, we have a hubcap, which you just line up with the nuts. Also your valve stem, there's usually a cutout, which is right here. So that goes around the valve stem so you don't break it. And you're done. I'm gonna drink some water and then I'll crush the other side.